based on the topic of our panel, we'll be walking through like our application processes, what we did in these different open source programs that we apply for, right? And thankfully, we have like a diverse range of programs. So I'll start with you, Victoria, because you're closest to me. Could you walk us through like first of all, what's his Outreachy? Yeah. And then you can walk us through your application process.
Okay. Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Victoria again. So Outreachy is an open source internship. So they basically want to help people in underrepresented countries, people who are basically underrepresented, get into the open source space, like get their first opportunities, right? And so the process of getting into Outreachy is very simple but also very tedious, right? It's a 6 months long process, and it starts with you putting in your first application, which is called the initial application. So they require you to write some essays, basically just wanting to know how you are underrepresented in the technology space in your country, that is your particular country of residence. And after this stage, wait 1 month for the results to be out. After 1 month, you get into what is called the contribution stage. So this is a stage where you have the opportunity to pick different projects that you can contribute to. So there are usually a ton of projects. It could be documentation. It can be, coding. In my own case, it was a microbiology project. So for a little backstory, I read microbiology in school before going into tech, and so I was very excited, when I saw that project. After your contribution stage, you wait another 1 month for the results to be out. So this is basically the stage where your mentors, your project mentors get to say, okay, we want this person to intern with us. And it's usually a very tedious process because there are hundreds of people trying to get into, the internship. And hundreds of people are contributing to one project, by the way. So there are thousands of people at the end of the day. And most projects just pick about 3% maximum, right? So that's why I said it's a tedious process. After the contribution stage, you get the internship, and then you now move on to the 3 full months of internship. So this is where you get, your structured mentorship, and you contribute to the project. After 3 months is over, you're done. You can decide if you want to stay with the community or if you do not want to stay. A lot of persons not stay, but a lot of persons also stay. So there's, very great retention potential there. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Very.
Hi everyone. So the specifically we're talking about GSoC,
Yeah.
Google Sum of Code. So Google Sum of Code is a paid remote open source program organized by Google. Actually, it started in 2005. The goal was to help get students to contribute to open source projects and join the organization and community. But in 2022, they had to now make it open for everybody to contribute to open source, essentially aspiring, or if it's your first time being in open source, or you haven't contributed to open source before. So it's paid annually every year, and they'll have the process where they get the organizations to pitch for them, then they'll get to select organizations. Then when those organizations are selected, they have the application phase where they allow people to apply. Then after that phase is they get to choose. So if they choose your application, that means you submit proposals for the project that you'll be contributing to for any organization that you select. Then they will have a contribution phase. Then that's more like how it works. So is a wonderful opportunity for anyone who is a first-time open source contributor or someone who has been a developer for, say, 5 years or 4 years, or you don't really need to be a student, but you haven't really delved into open source for real. So Google Summer of Code provides you with that opportunity to do that. So
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, so I am Chimezo, but you can call me Mezo for short. He already spoke about Google Summer of Code, so I might as well mention another elephant in the room, which is MLH. MLH is Major League Hacking. So unlike Google Summer of Code / Outreachy that are particularly community focused, MLH is more like individualistic. They tend to want to focus on your career. So how MLH typically works is they have multiple cohorts every time. I think sometimes 6 in a year with a spacing of 2 to 3 months. And it's kind of like a job application. You fill this really long form, you specify your skill stack, you work on, like, talk about technologies you've worked on. So that's like the application phase for MLH. Then somewhere along the lines, which is the most notable part of the MLH application process, you post or like add link a repository or a body of work that you've done that is supposed to be demonstrative of your like competence. So the idea is if you have a really nice project you've worked on, it could be something that's really caught your fancy or something you felt was really nice, you could attach that to your MLH submission and make sure like it demonstrates the qualities that they would be looking for in a potential intern or mentor. Now, after this application process, if your initial like application is accepted, there are 2 stages of interviews that typically come. The first one is kind of like a proof of life interview, so to speak, that you are who you say you are, that you have a stable internet connection, that you are actually a physical human being that can carry out the work. Then the second interview stage would typically be something where they walk through that code sample you submitted, ask you a couple of questions on it to make sure, again, that this is like a test of competence. Then afterwards, if you scale through that stage, you would make it to the wait list. So the wait list is like it's a transition period where you go from there to whichever project is accepting you if there is like availability or a slot. But sometimes, depending on your skill set, there may not be a slot. So you could do all of this and still like not get attached to an organization. But that's typically how MLH as a whole works.
Before you drop your mic, you want to tell us what was like the most challenging part of your application process?
Of the MLH
Yeah,
process.
like personally.
Okay, so personally, the most challenging process I had, actually, it challenged me twice, 2 different cohorts, was network. The first application I had for MLH, during the call, I don't know why or how, but my mobile network disconnected MTN.
Ah.
And quite literally on the meeting notes, one of the criteria for like getting in was a stable internet connection. And when he reconnected, I had to start explaining, oh no, there was something happened, but even while I was talking, I knew it was gone.
Oh my God.
My second stage, like second challenge again, was still network. Now, it was around the period there were a series of protests going on in Abuja. So networks were cut off. And like 40 minutes before my interview, all my networks went off, Glow, MTN. Trust me to have 3 different SIM cards this time around. So I had Glow, had MTN, had Nine Mobile. All 3 of them were off. But then I called a friend of mine who stayed far away, and he was like, his network was available. So I had to quickly rush. It was like a 30-minute journey, and I was running to where I could just drop the laptop and have my. So that was like the most challenging part, being able to to like appear competent in whoever you are being interviewed by, because the dynamics kind of differ from country to country. So it was the inborn local challenges I had to face too. That was the most difficult part of my MLH.
The advice would be try your best to get. I can't even tell you to get good network because I don't know what to do. But yeah, Chidebere.
yeah, so the challenging aspect for my application was I would just say I just highlight contribution aspects. Yeah, so one of them was that the programming tool, the framework that the organization used is PHP, but they are using a framework which I am not really familiar with. You know, a lot of things is happening in a tech stack. Let's say we have PHP or we have like JavaScript, and you say, oh, they are what they use here is Nest.js, but it's still JavaScript. So what was what was difficult for me was using the framework that the organization uses at that time, because I had to have a way to like get myself familiar with the framework, and it will also impact my application process. So I just had to like, maybe take a look at the documentation, play around with the tool, then so that I can make a proper, informed decisions when I'm submitting my application. Yeah, so it was essentially the framework. The framework was not something the framework was not something I was familiar with.
Yeah.
So so that was a big challenge.
Okay, so for me, the most challenging part was contribution stage. I don't know how many of us have heard, when people say, as a Nigerian, you have to work twice as hard as your European counterparts. And so most Nigerians who are in, these programs, they come in with that mentality. And for some of us who do not really know how to be everywhere at every point in time, I was overwhelmed. At some point, I thought, okay, maybe just step back a little and allow these people to just, do what they do. So I was really overwhelmed, during my first contribution stage. And at some point, I was almost discouraged, but then I had to, speak to a mentor, and she assured me that, oh, nobody is looking at your speed. We just want to see what you can do. We don't want to see how fast you can do it. We want to see what you can do. So I think that was the most challenging part for me, especially because there were over 200 applicants also that were contributing to that particular project. And, most of these open source programs are also experiencing funding issues. So a community can say, oh, they want 3 interns, and at the end of the day, when it's time for the internship, they pick just one. This is what happened, during my first contribution stage. They initially said, oh, we are picking 3, right? And even out of that 200, you're wondering, can I even make it to the top 3 that these people want? And then you now find out that there are funding issues and they might stream down, like go down to just one person. So I think all of that, stress and anxiety and, just wondering, am I doing enough was, very, very challenging for me. Yeah.
So Victoria, you've mentioned the contribution stage for your outreach, yeah? And I think when you were talking about outreach and your application process, you said something that they check is if you have some sort of like experience doing both personal things and things around your community. So I want to know, how do like casual contributions, like the contributions I was doing previously, how do they differ from the ones that I'll be doing if I join any of this project?
Okay, so with Outreachy, right, they are not very particular about your past experience, to be very honest. But you do need to have some skills because they expect that you have some skills, but they are not particular about your past experiences. Outreachy wants to give you an opportunity. They want to give you the spotlights, right? So they just come ready to learn, come with passion, and just be ready to learn. They are not particular about your past experiences at all, but it does help. For example, I mentioned that I read microbiology in school. And so when I saw my project and it was a microbiome study curation project, I was like, okay, this is interesting because I already have a background, and that is the foundation for which that project was built, right? So obviously, they would tend to pick people who already have some experience. But if you're a fast learner and you're somebody that, okay, you can pick up skills really quick, and then you can, you should actually not be scared to try out these projects, because contribution stage lasts for 1 month, and there's usually onboarding, materials that you can actually, get started with. So if you're a fast learner, you can pick up very quickly, right? But outside of that, no, they're not particular about your past experiences at all.
Thank you. Chimizu, can you share like one deliverable or project from your time that you now highlight most prominently in your resume or portfolio?
Okay, so a deliverable I can highlight would be my 2024 Google Summer of Code contribution. I'll just call it GSoC. My GSoC contribution, where I developed it's called an image block. So before that, there was a way of uploading images because I contributed to the Wagtail CMS. It's a framework. So you could upload images through an existing block, but they were not accessibility focused. Like, accessibility entails having support for alt text because like people who can't see or who are visually impaired, they don't see the images that we typically see. They see the alt text that is attached. So there was no like default support for that. And I worked on that feature, like the actual image block in use for Wagtail right now. And I would say that's opened a lot of opportunities for me because it was that same feature that I referenced in an application to my Quantsite internship. And that was the work we discussed during the interview stage. And it was what practically brought me on board to intern for the company. It was also that same contribution that I used that got me the interview seat at the MLH program. So like that image block feature I worked on has been something that at any point in time, if I go to like an interview setting or like if I get referrals, it's encompassed JavaScript, Django, documentation writing. So like chances are if I go to an interview setting and I reference that body of work, it's something that once they ask me any question, I can fill in the shoes of a JavaScript, Django developer, documentation writer, etc.
That's amazing. Jibberry, you have to learn a new framework. Do you highlight that?
Yes, so in my own case, it helped me because after the program, of course, someone reached out to me. Are you familiar with this particular stack? Exactly, the cake PHP. So that was something I learned in my Google Summer of Code contribution. I was like, yes. Do you know what I did? I just sent him the link to my contribution. So it's open source, so the pull request and everything is there. So I just sent him that link, and he had to go through it. And the link is detailed. Like there's a comment, there is because I have mentors, so they are going through the pull request and all this stuff. And also, I kind of highlighted the project, and that really, got me that job at that point. And I was like, because the stack was scarce, so it was difficult to find developers who can build with that. So immediately I sent in that was how I got it, and yeah, so how it worked for me.
Amazing. Are you guys hearing? Show walking. Don't be jo. Sorry. But yeah, Victoria.
Yeah, for me, right, I want to say everything I did during my internship. Yeah, I would highlight everything that I did during my internship. I had a co-intern, and we both curated over 75 research papers. What that means is some research papers have over 20, 30 pages, right? And if you're curating a research paper, it means that you have read that paper from the beginning till the end. And so in the space of 3 months, we both curated over 76, which means that over 75 rather, which means that we read over 75 research papers together, and then individually we curated over 20 new papers, right? So I would round that up to 90. And that also that landed me a role with a corporate company in the US. So while I was doing my internship, I actually got the role while actively in my internship. And I was trying to explain to them that because I applied out of, okay, I don't want to finish my internship and then I'm now, this is when I want to now start doing job applications. So I said, let me just go ahead and apply. And then when they called me for the interview and they asked me, what is your experience? I just gave them a link to all of my curations, right? It was a lot. And then they said, oh, can you detail for us? And I said, well, if I want to start detailing everything, we will probably not leave here today because it is a lot. And this was one of the things that impressed them. And even though I told them, oh, you are interviewing me in July, my internship runs until the end of August. They were like, oh, no problem, because I already had recommendation and reference from my mentor. And this is, something that one of the benefits, so to say, that I'm going to highlight about, contributing to open source. You have people who, just pick up for you in rooms where you naturally do not qualify to sit in, right? And I had all of these recommendations and references. And so they were like, okay, no problem. And I said, I may not be able to give my full time because usually Outreachy internship requires that you give 30 hours a week. And this job, if a part-time job, you need to give 20 hours a week. That is 50 hours a week. I would break down, and they were like, okay, the first few weeks you're going to be in training and all of that. And so I was like, fine. And that, I took the job and, so I usually would highlight all of the work that I did, during my internship because they were all very valuable.
Sounds terrible. I did the numbers. On average, if you have like 75 papers and you have 230 pages, that's 17,250 pages. We divide it by a 500 word book, 500 page book, you're looking at 34 books. So in how many months? 2 months?
In 3 months.
In 3 months, you read 34 books. I want one of you to beat it. But yeah. Okay. So it's interesting that you mentioned how people spoke up for you, yeah? And I want to know if Chidebere or Chimezo, if you had that experience, having like your mentors speaking up for you and how you maximize that relationship.
Yeah. Like practically every space, my mentors have spoken out for me. In fact, there was someone that went through my CV some time ago, and there was a part of my CV he could not believe. Like I got a recommendation by the president of the Django Software Foundation,
Oh my God.
and I was like, yes, it's one of the things that can happen from open source. Like just as Victoria said, you meet people that in the real sense of things, you're not really qualified to even sit amongst them. I've had like referrals, my mentors put me on opportunities at the time anywhere they saw if there was something I could do. Like I had people sticking out their necks for me in high places thanks to open source. So yes, it's a very similar experience of mentors stepping in.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in my own case, the I think my mentor asked me, am I able to am I going to highlight my experience in my CV? I say, yes, I'm going to do that. And that was it shows that they are willing to, maybe speak for me and also come in maybe when is necessary. But for Google Summer of Code too, I mean, some people want to have like certificates that they can attach to their portfolio and other stuff. Google Summer of Code, they give you a certification and is stamped by Stephanie Taylor, the Google Summer of Code program lead. So when you are done with the program, they will give you a certification with highlighting that you contributed to you participated in this program and also so you can use that to as a signature for like your future applications. Yeah.
Okay.
And there's also something Google Summer of Code does where if you're a successful like alumni, they attach a badge to your profile. So if you ever apply for a job from Google, in addition to receiving your details, the reviewer sees the badge that you're a GSoC alumni.
That's a really cool perk. I like that. So, following off that, yeah, like, would you say that there is some sort of value? Like, do you think recruiters or like hiring managers specifically value the experience that you've gained from either maybe as a GSoC, an MLH, or an Outreachy alum compared to other internships?
Yes, there is a chunk of value attached to it, and sometimes some companies they find it as volunteer work. So some companies may tend to not take stuff seriously, but in open source as a whole, there's so much anybody learns. Like just by contributing to open source, you become miles ahead of where you would have normally been. So a lot of those skills are directly transferable. And when they start to talk about experiences and you mention things you've done, they could look at you like, oh, are you lying? Are you serious about the things you've done?
Yeah.
So companies do place a value on stuff like that. And even some companies that may not directly place value on stuff like that, the moment they see the results that you show, they immediately place their value on you. So whether directly or indirectly, like the open source experience there's always a high premium on it.
Amazing. Okay, so show of hands, how many of us here are devs? How many of us write code? How many of us don't write code? Awesome. So this next one is for you. So for those that are in non-coding roles, like Victoria, how do you define and like measure your success during the program?
Personally, during my internship program, right, um, the way that I measured my success was from my mentor's feedback. So the thing with structured mentorship is you get to have regular feedback. You know, if there are lapses, they tell you. If there are places that they improve, they would tell you. Another good thing is the encouragement that comes when you do something really, really good, right? I cannot, start to count on the number of times my mentor will just say, "Oh, I'm so proud of you," right? And through that internship program and that community, I got to do something that was really, really interesting, right? I got to work with a nonprofit organization in Italy, and what they mostly do is global science communication, and they have scientific conferences every month. So I got to moderate sessions, I got to host sessions, I got to meet a ton of people. And the very first time where I had to host a session, my mentor just came to my DM and was like, "Oh, I'm so proud of you," right? So because coming from the time she met me when I was overwhelmed with the way people the way everywhere was just busy, she was like, "I'm so proud of you and how much that you have grown." So that is one of the ways that you can measure growth in this kind of settings. And I also want to state that most times you see this growth yourself, right? In my case, I saw it myself. From somebody I was very shy to even leave a comment in the public Slack channel about a question that I had, because I'm like, okay, what if this question is silly? What if it's a dumb question? And then people are, just behind laughing like, hey, look at this babe. And I'm like, okay. I grew from that to always putting my ideas out. I didn't care if it was silly or dumb. As long as it related to that project, I would put it out there, right? And so I knew personally that I was growing and, something has shifted. So I think that's also one of the ways that you can measure growth. You can do it yourself. Like you literally do not have to wait for a mentor to do it for you.
Very. What would you say, like, just out of the value and like both financial stipends, networking potential? I think we've spoken a little bit about networking potential and career resilience. Let's talk about the finance parts. How much is it? How much are we talking about?
Yeah, so the finance part is important. I mean, as much as we are passionate about tech, we also want to make some money along the line. But the thing is that when you go through the programs and you go to like the official sites, they tend to highlight the importance of the projects in an open source context. But for GSoC, depends on the project size. There's a medium size, which is about $15, and
You
there's
say dollars.
like $1,500, and there's the large project size, which is about $3,000. But also the organization would determine the project idea and the project size. So that's it for
For GSoC.
GSoC. Yeah.
Yeah, Victoria, for Outreachy. Just tell us a figure.
Okay, so for Outreachy, they pay you 7,000
Dollars.
for for a period of 3 months. So they pay in installments. First 1 month and about 2 weeks, they pay you 40%, which is about $3,000. And then after you complete your internship, like on the day that you complete your internship, they send you the balance of 4,000. Yeah.
Amazing. Hi.
Then for MLH, it is anything up to 5,000 USD. So it's organization specific sometimes, but generally not more than 5,000 USD.
That's amazing. So you've seen that aside like just casual contributions, this is an opportunity for you to like make money while doing the stuff that you. Thank you so much for your time.